All right, welcome everyone to the first official meeting for TCL 63 for the August cohort of the Collab Lab. So I think we had some brief introductions at the meeting before, but we could do a bit more or something more in-depth since we'll be working together for the next 8 weeks. I could kick things off. So we could just do your name, your location, maybe a background on how you got into coding, and what you like to do for fun or as a hobby. So like I said, my name is Devin. I'm based in Trinidad. My time zone is basically Eastern time, so still North American time zone. My background actually is in healthcare. I've been a dentist since 2009, so going on some time now. And how I got into coding was I was looking for a change in career. I wanted something that I could enjoy doing, and that I could also learn quickly. And coding just seemed to check those boxes. As for hobbies right now, so my jam for the last 10 years has been photography. Starting to dabble a bit more in video right now, but that just might be an excuse to own more cameras. So we'll see how that goes. So anyone want to go next, or I'll call someone? Yeah, Caitlin, you look ready.
Sorry, there we go, unmuted. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Caitlin, she, her pronouns. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area in the state of Maryland in the United States. And my background, before I became a developer, I worked in, oh, sorry, lights went out. I worked in language access and language education and nonprofit management. But I'm also a former Collabie. A couple years ago, I went through this program as well. And hobbies, I really like reading. I really enjoy lots of different genres, mostly fiction, but also nonfiction in there. So if you have any good book recommendations, let me know. I think that was all the questions. Does anyone want to go next? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karina. So I'm in the state of Massachusetts in the US, right outside Boston. My background is in math teaching. I was a high school math teacher until last year. I learned how to code in grad school for math teaching because I wanted to know how to create interactive activities for my students. And it was a game changer during the pandemic because over the weekend, I could just come up with stuff instead of just, doing geometry in Google Docs. I don't know if you like geometry or not, but just imagine a Google Doc and geometry. So yeah, I was like the superstar at my school. And I always loved it. So when I quit teaching last fall, I knew that's going to be coding. So I guess I officially started coding 100%, using my time last November. Yeah.
Nice.
I can go. So my name is Raquel. I live near Denver, Colorado, more specifically in Westminster, Colorado. My background is in marketing, but also nursing. I'm not from, I don't know if you guys noticed, but by my accent, I'm from Brazil. So I used to be a nurse there. It was a technical high school. So I went there, was a nurse, and then I came here. And I also worked in marketing for a while, but it was more like sales. And then I was a QA manager for a while. And then I came here. And how I got into coding is actually, I always loved coding. I kind of had a long history of it since I was a little kid and kind of playing with HTML, CSS, but I didn't know what it was. And back in my country, it's very male chauvinist related to this stuff. So it's oh, this is boy stuff. So I was went to nursing forcibly. Devin, you want to say something?
No.
So yeah, I ended up now going to coding, and I went all the way to the sides until I came back to it 2 years ago, I think in December. But I went to the coding bootcamp last year, September, and I graduated in December. And my hobbies are reading books, playing video games with my husband, watching movies, TV shows, Harry Potter, love Harry Potter. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Here at home, both of us are very nerds. Both of us are software engineers, so we're just playing video game all day is our hobby.
Nice, and another fellow healthcare career changer. I like it.
I think the next.
Go ahead, Changwan.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi everyone, my name is Sheng Guan. I'm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And how I went into coding is I did a little bit coding in college when I was studying data analytics. I really liked it, but I just never considered like it as a career. And after college, I joined the IT consulting firm as a project manager. Did that for a couple of years, and I feel like I miss building things from scratch. That's how I decided to quit my job and restart coding from VSCode camp. And it's been half a year right now that I self-study at home. And hobbies, I recently got into boxing. Not very good at it, but it's a fun game and it's high intensity workout exercise if you're interested.
Wow, that's quite the hobby. All right, go Aston.
Hi, my name is Aston. I'm him. I'm based in New York City. I'm originally from Iran, Tehran. I first came across coding in high school, actually. I was really interested in learning it by myself. I learned Visual Basics, a little bit of FoxPro, and we wrote a small program for our high school to just have a record of a student's name. Of course, it didn't work properly, but that's how it all happened. Unfortunately, I didn't in computer sciences. I went into structural engineering and architecture. And many years went by. I joined the profession as an architect. And to be honest, I enjoy making things, but not in architecture anymore because it's so limited and you're kind of stuck for so many reasons. And somehow in between all these years, I developed a neurological disorder when I was in Iran, which made me totally disabled. So I couldn't even walk for almost 10 years. When I came to the United States, they actually diagnosed it and they said, oh, we can do a brain surgery on you. And there's a programmable brain implant that could be placed in the brain, which corrects all those symptoms, which thanks God it helped. It worked. The surgery was successful. I went back on my feet, running, exercising, all of that. So this was 2016. So I continued to work as an architect a little bit. I'm being enabled by code, and I started by code when I was in high school. I really want to go back to it to get the freedom to this is why I enjoy it. So I quit my job as an architect, and I have been learning how to code again since last year. And my hobbies are I do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
I
Nice.
love jiu-jitsu and amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm glad you do it too.
I miss jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
I'm
you
too
do it
injured now
too?
to do it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Let's wrap things up with Chase.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Chase. I live in Denver, Colorado, in the US. My background, I started out my career in general as a chef. I was a chef for probably, I don't know, 10 years. And then a few years ago, I went to a boot camp. And after boot camp, I was able to find find work. I've been, I'd wanted to code for a long time, but I never had enough time to actually I don't know, get over the first hump and kind of get comfortable with it. So I made that commitment, went to boot camp. Yeah, got a job after that, and I've been working in the field for a few years now. So yeah. And as a hobby, I still do cook on occasion. It's something I still love, but just not as a career. Yeah.
It's nice. Always a handy skill to have, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So over the next 8 weeks, we will be working together to build an app, which is a smart shopping list. And our stack will mainly be React and Firebase for the backend. The code itself isn't very complex, but that was not the intention. The intention actually is, learning how to collaborate and work together as a team. Yeah, and think of this as a safe space where you can learn and communicate, and just figure out all the real world issues that come up with working together as a team. One of the most important tools I will use for collaboration would be Git. And everybody should be fairly familiar with GitHub, but our learning module this week actually is on Git, and I'll hand you all over to Caitlin for this.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Devin. Okay, so yeah, like Devin mentioned, we know that you know a little bit about Git at least because you had to push up some changes to our contributors markdown file, but we just want to make sure that you have everything you need for this week and just make sure we're all on the same page with how to contribute. And let me go ahead and share the correct screen, this one. Okay. There we go. Okay. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. You should be seeing the slide about Git. So tell me if that's not what you're seeing. And I got to pull this up. Okay. There we go. So today we're going to be talking about Git, how to get things done at the Collab Lab. As you all probably know, Git is a type of version control. It's a very popular one used amongst software engineers. And we're just going to go through today some of the most common commands that you'll come across when you're in the process through each week in contributing to our project. So we'll talk about creating and switching branches, staging changes, saving those changes in history, sending them to GitHub, getting the latest changes, and then getting your changes into main. And just a note, I will be sharing these slides with you all after our call. And if you want to use this as a reference at any point, just FYI, these are hyperlinks to points later in the presentation. So it's easier for you to jump to the part that is helpful to you. And we'll also be uploading this YouTube recording so that you can also reference it later if you need. But let's go ahead and jump into some of these terms, some of these most common terms that you're going to come across during our cohort. So the first one here is repository or repo. Does anyone want to take a stab at telling me what a repo or repository is? Anyone feeling brave? Yeah, Shanwan. Sorry?
Is it like a folder?
Yeah, like a folder. Yeah, exactly. Very succinctly put. So it's basically a collection of files, specifically one that's under version control like Git. But yeah, it's a fancy name for a folder that we have a history of. Yeah, you'll hear us referring to it as a repository or a repo when we're talking about this. How about remote in the context of Git and coding? Does anyone know what remote means?
Remote is the location where the project is located on GitHub, actually.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
A local version and a remote version.
Exactly, yes. So the complement to remote is local, something that's on your computer, versus remote is something that lives online. GitHub is the tool that we use specifically. There are other tools as well, but GitHub is the most popular. Lovely, thanks, Aslan. How about what is a branch? Does anyone want to try to tell me what a branch is?
A branch is where we fix the bugs or add some features and then we just add into it. I think the other one I did, I had a little code that we could put it, and the initials, our initials, and then we can just create that branch and then just push to the GitHub.
Beautiful. Yeah, you've been doing your homework about how we do things at the Collab Lab. Yeah, a branch is just a copy of the repository. When you create it, it's an exact copy. And then, like Raquel was saying, you're going to make some changes that you're eventually going to want to put back into the main branch or the default branch. For our repo and for most repos on GitHub, main is the name of the default branch. Sometimes it might be something different. You can easily find that when you're looking at GitHub. It'll tell you that this is the default branch is main, and that's usually the name of it. Yeah, lovely. And like Raquel mentioned, at the Collab Lab, we like to use a naming convention of naming the branches with your initials, just to make it clear who's working on which branches. But we'll get into that in the future. Okay, and then what is a commit? Would anyone like to try and tell us what a commit is?
Is that a decision to make those changes? I don't want to say permanent because I know we can delete commits, but it's like kind of, yeah, relatively permanent.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, commit, like you're committing to the code kind of, right? Yeah, so basically just a set of changes. Once you've decided that this is what you want to kind of save and kind of create a record of these changes, then you'll create a commit. And then head refers to the most recent commit on a branch. And then finally, does anyone want to tell us what a pull request is? We haven't done these as a team yet together.
Is it the request for somebody to accept the commit?
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So when you are creating a pull request, you are basically trying to, if you're doing it well, you're describing in detail how and why these changes should be merged into main. Technically, you can do it into any branch, but typically you'll be using a PR to main, the main branch. And just a note, we're using GitHub and the terminology is pull request or PR, but some like different code hosting services use different terms. So merge request is what it's called on GitLab. I think on Bitbucket, it's called a peer review. So it's still a PR, but it stands for something different. But these are all terms that are referring to the same thing. It's when you're trying to have other people look at and review your code and then accept it into the main branch. Wonderful. You guys don't even need me. We already know all of these terms. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on to looking at kind of a visualization of what this looks like as kind of a timeline. So if we look at these orange dots here, excuse me, this is going to be our main branch. So we have someone did an initial commit, someone else added a button, and then we have decided that we want to work on a feature. So we're going to first create a branch, just like Raquel told us. We want to make sure that we're doing it, basically creating a safe little playground for ourselves where nothing is going to break on main because we've basically just made a copy, a local copy, like Aslan was telling us, that it doesn't affect anything until we want it to. So we're going to make a commit to add some styles. Meanwhile, someone else has done maybe merged a PR to main to update text. And then we want to add some tests. And now we're finally ready to merge it into the main branch. So we're going to create a merge or like create a PR in order to merge to the main branch. And once we've merged it, it's going to look like this. So you can see these are the changes that already existed before we created our PR. And then our changes are here. And then we have our merge. I think this should say merge commit, but yeah, basically you can see this is how it's going to work, and it keeps it nice and clean. It prevents, any confusion about the order that anything's happened. And it's just a really helpful way, especially when you're collaborating with a team. Using a very clean process helps to avoid confusion. So let's look into some of the most common commands that we're going to be using in order to follow this process. So the first step that we saw was to branch, create a new branch, or switch to an existing branch. Does anyone know what the command is if you want to either switch to an existing branch or create a new branch? It's git something.
I usually use, for switching to a different branch, I use git checkout and the name of the branch.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct. There is also git switch, which is another command, but git checkout is also the one that I use. So git checkout is correct. And If you are creating a new branch, there's a flag that you'll use, this B flag. So git checkout can be used either for creating or creating a new branch or switching to an existing branch. So for example, if we have an existing branch called cool feature branch, the command that we want to use here is going to be just git checkout cool feature branch, like this. Or not cool feature branch, the name is cool feature. So git checkout cool feature. But if we want to create a new branch that doesn't exist yet, called new feature, then we're going to need to add this B flag. So git checkout B new feature. So if you haven't had to work with branching before, you'll be practicing that this week with your pair. And just like Raquel told us, we're gonna try and name our branches with our initials and our partner's initials at the beginning, and then some kind of description of the work that you're doing. So like git checkout B CF, and if I'm working with Karina, then it's CM button or something like that. So just to keep it, just so we know what's happening on each branch. Okay, the next thing that we'll do is we're going to stage our changes. Once we've made changes and we're ready for those to be like, we're like, these are the changes I want to commit up to the branch. We call this staging. Does anyone know what command we'll use to stage changes?
Git add.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice, Raquel. We're going to git add. And again, there are some flags that you're going to use after git add, but this is the main command that you'll use. So only files that have been staged will be included when you create a commit. So I always forget this step. My computer's always like, you should have git added. There's nothing staged. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I've got to go back and add. This is a nice little safety feature though. So it's like, okay, yes, these are the files that I want to stage. And then there's like, this is like kind of the dress rehearsal. And then you can send it off to GitHub, for example. So if we want to just add a single file, you can use git add and then the name of the file. So git add ./button.js for just one file. If you want to add all the files, there's two options that you can use. The first one is using -A, and the second one is using dot. I did not know until yesterday the difference between these two commands, but the difference is that if you use dot, it's going to add all of the files in the directory that you are in on the command line, and anything within those, like anything below that folder. But if you use -A, it's going to be anything in the entire repository, even if it's a parent of the folder you're currently in. So I personally like to use dot because it's like anything you can see in your computer is what's included. But if you are less of an anxious person than me, maybe you're okay using the -A. It's personal preference. You'll kind of learn it'll become second nature to you. But I am an anxious person, so I like to use the safer option of git add dot when I'm trying to add everything. So there you go. Let's see, what is the next step? After we have staged our changes, we want to commit our changes. This is kind of an easy one. What is the command to commit something?
Commit.
Yes, wonderful, yes. Git commit is what we're gonna do when we are ready to make a final, like this is what I want to make a record of in my code. So this one has a lot of different flags that come with it. One of the resources I'm going to share at the end is like the Git documentation. I'm constantly learning new things about Git. Like a lot of these commands I don't use on a regular basis. So if I wanted to know what the command was, I would probably look it up. Like for example, this AM thing I've never used, but we'll show you some examples here. So yes, git commit, like Aslan said. And here are some examples of different ways you could use git commit. So if you just say git commit, your terminals, your Git is going to be like, what's the message? Like, what do you want me to say? So it's going to open up an editor where you can write your commit message. If you want to skip that step, a common way of doing this would just be git commit -m and then open quotes, and then the message that you want to include with your commit. Excuse me. And then this one that I don't use because again, I'm too anxious for this. You can do the previous step of staging and this step of committing in one step if you want to. So if you say git commit AM and then your commit message, what this is going to do is it's going to basically be like git commit dash A and, or sorry, git add dash A. So git add everything and commit it with this message is what that's doing. So I'm too scared for that. So I don't do it. But again, Git is there to help you. So it's really helpful because it creates a record. It makes it really easy for you to undo changes if you don't want to keep them or anything like that. So it's really your friend at the end of the day. Okay, so then once you've committed, if you are ready to push it out into the ether, what is the command you're going to do in order to upload those changes?
You push.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of gave it away. I said if you want to push it. Yeah, git push is how you take the things from your local branch and push them up to the remote branch. Again, there's kind of two variations on this command most frequently, because if you have created a local branch and it doesn't exist in the remote, when you try and git push, Git's going to say, this branch doesn't exist in the remote. I can't push it up. You have to create the upstream remote in order to have a place for it to go. And so the command you'll have to run, this is for the first time you're pushing changes on a new branch. You'll have to run this git push -u origin and then the name of the branch. And I don't ever remember this command. I have an alias set up on my computer. The other thing is, if you try and just run this git push command, Git will give you feedback and say, there's not an upstream remote. I think you meant to do this. And you can just copy paste it and say, yes, thank you, Git, you are such a good friend. And just go ahead and do that. If you remember this command, then you're better at Git than I am. Yeah, and then all other times you can just go ahead and git push, and then Git will take care of knowing where to put it. Yes, I think that is everything for git push. And we've got one more command, I believe. Yeah, one more command and then one more step. So when you are trying to get the local or the latest changes, let's say your partner has made some changes on a branch and you want to go ahead and receive those changes so that you can start working on it. What is the command to get those changes from the remote?
Git pull.
Yeah, exactly, git pull. As noted here, when you're creating a new branch, it's a good habit to just pull the latest changes from main and then branch off of main so that you are as up to date as possible. It'll prevent any unnecessary merge conflicts down the line, and it just makes sure that you're not doubling your work. So whenever you're creating a new branch, try to go to git checkout main, git pull, and then git checkout be your new branch. That's a good process to do to avoid unnecessary confusion, which is, I just gave this away, but yeah. So when you want to switch to the main branch, we're going to say git checkout main. And then when we want to get the latest changes for main, we're going to just git pull. So git pull works on whatever branch you're currently on. So if you're on your feature branch and you git pull, you're not going to get the changes to main because you're not on the main branch. So just make sure you check which branch you're on and then git pull. Okay, and then the next step is going to be creating a pull request. Our learning module next week, Devin's going to be talking about how to do a pull request and how to do code review. So we're not going to get too in detail here, but you will have to create a pull request this week. Just do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm kind of going to show you like briefly how to do that, and all of the mentors will be here during the week. If you run into issues, creating your pull request. But basically, when you're on GitHub, there's a tab called pull requests, and then there's a button where you can create a new pull request, and it'll ask you for which branch into which branch. You're always going to want to do into main. I don't know if I can do that here because we don't have any branches existing, but yeah, right here. So this arrow is showing you the direction you want to merge. So we're always going to want to merge into main, and then we'll just choose the name of our working branch, our feature branch that wants to merge into main. And it'll show you a really handy view of what's changed in your branch compared to main, and then you'll be able to create a pull request here. I can't do it because main into main, you don't need to do a pull request for that, but that's kind of what the view looks like. And then the one last thing I wanted to show you on this presentation is just merge conflicts. I know that I am not excited when I see that there's a merge conflict. It can be a little bit stressful, but it's going to be okay. I think someone was mentioning in our kickoff call the other day that it's actually a good thing when you run into problems like this with TCL, because this is a safe place. We're here to help you. It gives you practice doing those things that are a little bit more difficult or that you're nervous about. So we hope that you have merge conflicts so that we can help you with them and that you have some practice and feel more confident with them. We're not going to get into how to deal with merge conflicts today. You probably won't have merge conflicts this week with your issues. And if you do, the mentors are here to help you. But we will at some point in the future go over how to do this. But don't panic. We're here to help you. There is a guide that Stacy wrote that I'll share the link with you all afterwards. But it's if you use VSCode, there is actually a really helpful UI for dealing with merge conflicts. That's my editor of choice, but yeah, it's going to be okay. It's the takeaway from merge conflicts. And I think that's it, other than the resources. Again, I'll share these afterwards. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about Git? Anything we covered? Yeah, go ahead, Karina.
So I guess I've been cheating my way into, commits because I've been using VSCode. It has like a handy little menu button there. Is that not from a professional way of doing it?
I would not say that. I love VS Code's UI. I would encourage you to try and learn the basic Git commands. They're really helpful, and it's especially the ones that you use all the time. It's good to know, but I would not agree with the statement that it's not professional to use VS Code's buttons. For anyone that hasn't seen them before, like if you have changes, which I guess I don't have anything, like if I save something, it'll show up here, and there's like a button here where I can say, oh, I want to stage changes. Does anyone know what that command is off the top of their head? If I click this button that says, yeah, exactly, git add. So if I say git add, or if I click this button, it does the same thing. And then if I want to commit changes, this is where I can put in my message. Don't want to actually do that, and then you can commit changes. I think that's fine. I think part of being a software engineer is using tools available to you. So I think that's totally fine if that makes more sense to you. But for the very common commands, I would encourage you to practice them a little bit just to get the hang of them. But nothing wrong with using VS Code. I use it all the time. Anyone else have any questions? Cool. If we have time at the end, we can do a mini demo, and I can show you how to do it in VS Code or how to do it in the terminal, how to open a PR very simply. But before we do that, we're going to, if I can stop sharing, we're going to take a look at the issues for the week. Yeah, Chase is going to be talking us through that bit. Sorry, Chase, I didn't mean to catch you off guard.
Oh, sorry, I was just trying to get to a little quieter spot. But yeah, let me share our issues for the week. this. So. All right. So this is our first issue in our shopping list. We have 13 issues, it looks like, total. But issue number 1, as a user, I want to read the names of all the items in my shopping list. And I think a big thing about these first two, for our acceptance criteria, our first 2 tasks have already been completed for us. So for this one, it looks like all we're gonna have to do is in the list component, excuse me, in the list item component is used to render the name of each of our shopping list items.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess just real quick, do we have any questions about this first task issue? All right, we can look at number 2 real fast. Number 2, as a user, I want to be able to navigate to all the pages in the application by clicking the links in the nav bar. Maybe just real fast, we can this is our current application as is. We have our nav bar down here. We have a home, a list, and an add item. Yep. So already completed for us. There's a nav in the layout component, and we have links for the home list and add item pages. So to complete our task here, the links to all, yep, the links to all of this function as expected using the nav link component from our React Router DOM package. Yeah. Any questions about this issue?
I actually have a question about the first issue. I don't see the list JSX file, only the list item JSX file. Maybe I missed it somewhere.
That might be a typo. Because I think later on it's referring to list item.jsx. Oh wait, no.
Okay.
Oh,
I might be wrong.
list.jsx is actually in the views folder in source.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we have a list here, looks like in views. We also have a list item and components here. Yeah, so I believe in list, we're just going to be using this list item to first here, just render, what was it? The name of each of the items. Awesome. What's next? Do we kind of talk about who wants to do each of these issues?
Yeah. Do you want to pull up the pairs for this week? Do you have that handy, Chase?
Sorry, I'm not sure quite where that's located.
That's okay.
Offhand.
All right, so
If you
for
pull-
this week, yeah, we have Karina and Aston working together, and then Raquel and Shangwan. The pairs are located in the project brief in the repo.
Where am I going to look at pairs? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's in the repo
Okay.
yeah, in the project brief markdown.
Let me.
I just posted a link in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Awesome. All right, gotcha. And All right. Does anyone have a feeling that they have a preference for either one or two?
I think you get to decide, Chase.
Oh,
It seems like no one has a preference.
awesome. Well, let's just go with the numbers. Karina and Aslan, let's have y'all work on number 1, and Raquel and Shangwan, if y'all want to work on number 2. Does that work out for everyone?
Do you want to assign to them in the issues?
Oh, yep,
Case?
that would.
I just did one, so you could do number 2.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay, gotcha. Let's get. Oh, it's over here. So we're doing. Yeah, that looks right. Awesome.
Cool.
Everyone's assigned. Yeah.
All right. So what's next from here is that we'll set up a thread. So each week we'll do this for each SU. We'll set up threads in Slack, and I'd encourage you to keep that discussion, for each issue within each thread. Just be open with your communication, because at some point other people will have to read, the communication. So basically, try not to think to yourself and just keep everything to yourself, which is very common when you're always working on solo projects. Also, so the way that this will also work is that you will work on your issues with your partner. When y'all are done, you will tag the other pair who will review your issue. And once each team has reviewed each other's issues, they will tag the mentors for review as well. So I would say try to have your peers reviewing your issues maybe midweek, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, so they could tag the mentors close to the end of the week. Ideally, we'd like to have everything merged in before the next weekly sync. Yeah. And don't be afraid to tag anyone. Tag the mentors if you need help, if anything is unclear. But like I said, just be open with your communication. Talk out loud. Use each other as rubber ducks if you have to, bounce ideas back and forth to figure out some of the problems. And something else I was going to say. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help. Right. And again, it's not about having the most perfect code. There's really collaboration, right? It's okay if things go wrong, and quite frankly, I think that's when you learn the most. So don't be afraid of mistakes. In fact, embrace the mistakes. Yeah, just like we'll embrace merge conflicts at some point. Yeah. Did you have any questions about this week's issues or anything in general?
I have 2 questions. So I'm embarrassed to say, but I haven't used Slack before to communicate. So when you say tag, it's just basically just yeah, that's what I meant. When something is done. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to ask because
that's okay.
Yeah.
So once you use @ you'll say like a bunch of preset ones come up. You should also see your teammates' names as you start typing. So you could tag individual people. And for TCL in particular, we have TCL devs, which would be all developers, and then TCL mentors, which would alert Caitlin, Chase, or I.
And so the link that was shared in the chat sorry, I'm just going to open it again. With the project briefs. So there's an issue list. There's a link to the issue list. When I click on it, it looks like it's broken.
Which link is that, Karina?
So it's project/1. So it's the issue link. I think it's the penultimate link. Let me just go back to. So on the project brief, I
Yeah,
click on.
I'm getting a 404 on that one too.
Oh.
So we can fix that.
Is that the one at the top of the TCL channel, TCL 63 channel? See, I'll drop this one in and see. I just posted one in Zoom. Can everyone see that file?
Yeah, so that one, it's working. It's the fourth one because there's a list of 5 links. So it's the fourth one that's not working.
Yeah, from within the project brief, Devin, the link to issues isn't working, but I think we have the correct one in our Slack channel. So
Okay.
Karina, we'll have one of the mentors fix it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But good call out.
Good find, yeah. All right. So these issues are fairly small. That's intentional. Like Stacey was saying, try to stick within the scope of the issue. Don't try to go above and beyond, just because it could complicate things unnecessarily. And even though it doesn't look pretty, we'll spend time styling things in the end. So don't worry about how it looks right now. Right? Let's just focus on the functionality and get things working. Yeah. So one other thing. So every week we will have office hours with the mentors, usually one mentor per week. This week I'll be doing it, so I will send out a doodle. Usually Wednesday, Thursday is a good time, but it is optional. But we'll try to find time that everyone could be there. Yeah. So you could bring any questions you have about code, about life, about anything in general. We just spend our hour chatting about those things. Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. Aslan.
One more question about the Slack. So when we want to communicate to each other, are we just generally communicating in the TCL 63, or are we creating a new channel for each story, each issue?
So once we wrap up this call, I will there's an automation that will run that basically creates a thread for each issue. So any conversation relevant to that issue, you just keep it in that thread. Yeah. General Collab Lab stuff relative to our specific group is fine in the channel. And of course, you could message each other one-on-one if you want to, but anything project related, just try to keep it within the channel itself.
Thank you.
And if this is your first time using Slack, don't feel bad. Like it's a good tool to learn for works. Like a lot of workplaces use it, but if it's your first time, like you'll learn. We'll help you to learn how to use it if you're having problems with it.
I think it's nicer than Discord for work.
I agree.
Any other any other questions from our collabis? Caitlin, did you want to do the demo?
Sure, yeah. Since we have a little bit of time, I wanted to show you all just very briefly what that process looks like that we were talking about in our learning module. So let me share my screen again. And okay, so I'm just gonna work in this contributors MD file since that is what we've already been working in, but I'm going to kind of do this process as if I'm one of you and I have a partner, and I'm working on this as my like task for the week, my issue for the week. So the first thing we're going to do, remember, is we always want to pull from main. I don't think there's been any changes, but who knows? You never know. So we're just going to, you can see I'm already on the main branch, and I'm going to git pull from main. Already up to date because I did this yesterday. And then I'm going to create a new branch. So I'll git check out B, since this is a new branch. And you can see I already started doing this, but I'm going to create a branch for myself. I'm going to call it my initials. I don't have a partner, so we'll leave that off, but you'll usually do both of the partner's initials in whichever order is fine. And then just like a little description of what you're working on in that branch. And then now I'm on the new branch, and I'm just gonna do this because I do like this emoji and I don't want to change it. So I think this syntax works on GitHub. So then I'm gonna save it so it's the same emoji. And the two options we can do here, actually, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just like do some nonsense up here that I don't actually want to save. Because I want to show you something cool that VSCode can do. So the two options we have are either to git add, and I can give the name of this file, or I could say git add dot to add everything. That is one way of staging. The other way, using the UI of VSCode, because there's two changes to this file and I only want to change one of them, this is like an extra thing that VSCode can do is I can say, okay, well, there's this change and there's this change, and I can see them through the UI of VSCode that like, oh, I do want to keep this change, but I don't want to keep this change. So what I can do is I can highlight and right click, and there is an option to stage selected range. And what that's going to do is it's just going to stage this, but not this. So that's really handy. There's a way to do that through the terminal, but it's way easier to do through the UI. So Karina, totally no problem with, from my perspective at least, no problem with just using the UI if it's helpful. So that's one cool thing that that VSCode allows you to do. We've staged our changes. So the next thing we want to do is we want to commit. So I'm going to say git commit M, and then I'll give my description, which is just update Caitlin's emoji. And I'm going to hit enter. And now we have that change has been committed. And I can see if I use git log, that's not one we talked about, but I can see this is the most recent commit on head of CF update emoji, update Caitlin's emoji. So far we've staged and committed our changes. Then we're going to want to push. And it's telling me what the command is. But let's say I forget that I have to set upstream. So I'm going to just say git push. You can see here, as I mentioned, git is going to say it has no upstream branch. If you want to set an upstream or set the remote as upstream, use this command. So I can just copy and paste right there. And now we can see that it has created this branch. It's been set up to track this these changes, and we have also pushed our changes. I think it says that somewhere in there. So if we go now to GitHub, move my Zoom controls, and I go to code. There's two places that you can create a PR. Usually the one that I use, if I have just pushed my changes, they're like super fresh, it's gonna give you this really helpful pop-up on the GitHub like main code tab. You can just click here and it's gonna compare and pull request. The other place you can do it, as shown in the presentation, is you can come to this pull requests tab. And now, again, this pop-up has shown up here too, because they're like, I feel like this is what you want to PR because this is what you just pushed. But let's say you missed that totally. You can still come to this new pull request button and then select your branch that you want to merge into main. So they make it like very obvious where to find the buttons. If you miss all of those pop-ups, you can still go this traditional way and then just create a PR right here. So let's just do that just so you see what it looks like, and we can decline this later. But you can see here, there's a really handy template PR that shows you the type of information that you might want to include. This will be covered more in detail next week. So don't worry if you don't fully know how to fill this out, but just try and include a description of what the changes are that you want to do. And then I'm just going to leave this blank because this is not a real PR, but I'm just going to create it just so you can see what it looks like, and we'll decline. You can see now this is the description that was already included. And I'll just leave this up so that you can take a look at it if you want to, so you know what it looks like, and I'll decline it later today. But those were the steps that we talked about, and those are the steps you're going to be following this week. So if you have questions, feel free to refer back to this recording, or feel free to ask the mentors, and we'll be happy to help you. Do y'all have any, Devin or Chase, did I miss anything, or does anyone have any questions about what we just did?
I have one unrelated question. I just saw in your terminal, when you have like your Git commands, it gives you a nice timestamp and a color, like a color on the branch.
Yeah.
Is that a plugin? I really want to use it.
It is. I love it. I'll send you all the link afterwards, because this is so helpful to me to have the branch name. Like, that has saved me so many times. I'll send you all a link after our call so that you can, if you would like to try and install it as well. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Stop sharing my screen.
I do have to share like the recurring nightmare that I have since I started coding, and people kind of sharing stories on social media that they lost code, or almost lost code. And how can that happen? And just like, what's the thing not to do ever? Like,
yeah, I mean, I feel like that is the big benefit of Git, is that once it's in Git, it exists and you can always refer back to it. Like, there's a commit history and everything. So I feel like doing what we were just talking about will help prevent you losing code. If you have to do anything kind of unfamiliar with Git commands, talk to us, and we can talk you through how to fix changes so that you're not accidentally deleting everything. Because it shouldn't happen if you're following along with Git. That's exactly what Git is there to prevent. So try not, Git is your friend. Don't be too scared. I feel the same way, I felt the same way when I was starting out. So I understand, but you'll be okay. It shouldn't happen to you.
Yeah, don't not push the Git to Git. Use it. That's what it's there for. And have nice small commits and commit frequently. So at least you have 2 copies of your code locally and in the repository.
Totally agree.
And you're safe at TCL. So if there's a place to make mistakes or mess up, it's here. Because you have a lot of support and a lot of backup. So don't worry too much about it.
Cool.
So, any
I
final
think
questions?
everyone's ready.
Yeah. Going once, going twice. All right. So let's call this meeting to a successful close. Nice kickoff. So I will see you all in Slack, and I will see you all at office hours this week.
Yay.
Yeah.
Good
Happy
luck,
coding,
everyone.
Have fun.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, all. Bye.
Bye.